Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce out. Another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Jetzt kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Isco an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch, guys. This is not your usual host here. Eli had to go for a wedding this weekend, so I'm gonna host for today. I'm Pedro, and I'm joined by Brian, as usual. And we also have Evan from the Portugal Corner. How are you guys, and how was your weekend before we dive a little deeper into Sporting 0, Borussia Dortmund 3?
Pretty good. A lot of soccer and a lot of snow. I don't know if you guys are in Canada, but we're getting dumped on right now in Toronto.
Yeah, one of our co-hosts, Ali, he's from Canada, so I'm sure he's feeling a bit of that snow. But my weekend was good. We actually went out to Philly for Valentine's Day, so that was a fun little trip. Yeah, it was a good time. Football wise, not so much. At least for the league game, but we'll get to that. Let's talk about better things though with the game against Sporting. I think starting on a high note's better these days.
Yeah, Philadelphia right now with the Super Bowl. I imagine it's a really not the best romantic spot maybe for Valentine's Day.
So it was crazy. Everyone was in like Eagles gear. It was intense. So
Damn, I can imagine.
Eagles
Wow.
fans
Wait,
are intense.
that town get trashed?
I wouldn't say it got trashed, but when my partner was going to school in Philly, she said they straight up like greased the poles to make sure people weren't like climbing them and stuff like that. So we didn't see much of that this time around. But I mean, it was pretty crazy. The parade was insane from what we just the amount of people that we saw, and everyone was wearing like Eagles like gear and green. So it's a very sports forward town, and as Dortmund fans, I feel we can respect that. So
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And you know what's more crazy? Borussia Dortmund winning against Sporting away in Portugal. Man, this is definitely a win that neither of us, I think I can say that neither of us Dortmund fans would expect. And I think before we go to our general thoughts of the game, I think I'm gonna have just read a few stats for you guys. In terms of XG, Sporting have 0.7 and BVB 1.81. Total shots on target 13, Sporting 16, Dortmund, and but no big chances for Sporting, with only 3 chances for Dortmund, which we capitalized on that. I think that's what made difference in this match. And I'm going to start with Evan now. So I just want to know your general thoughts on the game and what was your impression? Do you have the same expectation as us? Do you think Sporting was the favorite? What did you think?
I don't know. It's not that surprising. The fact that 3-0 at home is a pretty big loss, but I feel like they're on such a loss of momentum because of all the manager changes. And Rui Borges, like he was doing well with Vitória Guimarães in Conference League, and that was like one of the big reasons Sporting poached him. But I think by the time he got to Sporting and he's doing so much caretaking stuff and kind of fixing all the holes, like a big match against Dortmund, who is always just phenomenal in the Champions League. Like it wasn't the biggest surprise, but to get hit three goals at home, that was pretty tough.
Yeah, no, a hard shot for Rui Borges, who has been a decent job until now, like just coming in for Ruben Amorim, who left from Manchester United. And he started really well with winning the derby against Benfica, 1-0 for Sporting at
Mhm.
home. But yeah, this Dortmund match, especially in the Champions League, 3 matches, they had not won in the Champions League this year with Rui Borges in the round. So, Brian, I want to know from you, what were your general thoughts of the game?
So I said this on the last episode, and my prediction for the game was a pretty optimistic one. I think I said 2-0 for this game. And that wasn't necessarily based on analysis. That was more so me trying to speak something into existence for these guys because it's been such a rocky season. Um, but it's a result that's kind of like expected, and it's not, because this Dortmund team, the way we've come to know it, is a team that um, shows up for occasions that seems to interest them. And they've very much been more so a Champions League team. I mean, when it comes to the Champions League results, especially in the beginning under Nuri Sahin, I think Dortmund were top of that league table for quite some time, and or at least in the top four for a while. And we've come to know this for the last few seasons. It's Champions League. This team can be a different animal. Um, and I really do think at this point it's kind of just based on like their interest and ability to step up to that sort of game. They do seem more of like a cup team right now. For some reason, I mean, and this is something that and we'll get into more with the whole Bochum game later, but the commentators for the Bochum game were kind of saying that like, oh, like, the mental step to playing Bochum after playing a game like they did against Sporting was a bit tough for them, which is insane to say for a team like Dortmund who should be able to do that. But to me, it really seemed like they were just so much more enthused, and there's a lot more energy in that Champions League display. And I mean, and granted, it wasn't throughout the entire match either. I don't know if you'd agree with me on this, Pedro, but at least personally for me, I thought the first half was pretty lackluster. And it wasn't really until the second half where I feel like Dortmund really woke up. I don't know whether it's something that Niko Kovac said in the locker room or something, but it wasn't until the second half that we really saw them kind of wake up and really look threatening in their play. But yeah, like once again, I really don't know how else to explain it other than they were just far more enthusiastic about this game. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I think it's also the next topic. It was really a tale of two different halves, especially in the first half. I mean, at first I was really surprised with the starting 11 from Sporting because I was expecting Gonzalo Inácio to start. I was expecting maybe Gyökeres to start. He went in the match against Porto in the midweek, so I was expecting him and Morita to start this match. But instead, Rui Borges preferred the guy in the midfield was João Simões, which is really interesting young player from Sporting. But the defense really surprised me with Sam Just and Mateus Reis at the left side of the defense. I think he preferred more physicality to face those speedy guys as Adeyemi and the strength of Girassi. So that really surprised me in the starting 11. And I think the first half was a little bit. I think Sporting dominated most of it. It's not like they created a lot of chances, as we said in the stats. But at the same time, they had more possession. They were pressing better. They're usually Reborger shapes in a 4-4-1-1. But I mean, Francisco Trincão, especially, I thought was a guy who had a lot of freedom to drift from the inside and try to fight those passes or shooting to the goal. I think he gave a nice pass to Araújo to shoot on the post in the first half. And I was really surprised with that because Araujo was technically like the left wing back, but he played more like a left winger, but he drifted more inside. And then Mateus Reis attacked the flank. So it was really interesting, tactically speaking, match, or at least the first half from Sporting, in my opinion. And Dortmund didn't really know how to react to that. I think we're losing all the midfield battles basically, and I think we are not physical or motivated enough. And that's what Brian said. I think in the second half, I don't know what Niko Kovac said. It completely changed. I think I even wrote it down here. I think it's from the 50th minute. I think it was the first well-constructed play from Dortmund from with a shot from Adeyemi. And since that moment and the way the Dortmund start to use the flanks better in the second half, I think we got more momentum. And I think the difference in football is that when you have a chances, you need to capitalize, and that's exactly what Dortmund did. But I want to go with Evan right now. What do you think? It was really a tale of two halves. Like, what changed from like the first half to the second half, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, I think that's been consistent with how Sporting have been playing. I've definitely watched them a number of times, and maybe they'll come out strong and score two goals, and then go into the second half, even if it's a smaller team in Portugal, and just maybe give away one and still win the game, but just kind of fall asleep. So that's not too off brand for how they've been since all the manager changes. But yeah, definitely going with a little bit more of a robust squad. I guess to try to win the physical game, but with that squad too, right now they're just littered with injuries, and a lot of issues and a lot of shifting players. So they're still trying to figure things out. With Gyökeres too, it's the last. I think it's been like 3 weeks now that it's just like he's starting on the bench and he's coming on. I don't know if that's a bit of maybe trying to hide him in the transfer market. Not that people don't know what he can do, but maybe trying to bring Conrad Harder in. who's been having a phenomenal season. He just scored on the weekend. And yeah, I think they're just trying to let him shine and then bring on Gyökeres for a late burst of energy, but clearly did not work midweek.
Yeah. No, definitely agree. And a guy that I thought was underwhelming in this match and was a guy I was really afraid of was Giovanni Kenda, the winger. He had a really good match against Sporting the midweek, but I mean, at first I thought he was going to play on the left, which is usually where he goes because Jenny Catamo usually plays on the right, but Catamo is injured. But Kenta actually went on the right, so Mateus Reis and Araújo could go on the left side. And I was really surprised with a guy that recently came to Dortmund, Daniel Svensson, the young sweet player from, and now I cannot pronounce the name from the team he was from. He was from the Danish league, but the name is too complicated for me to pronounce, so I'm gonna stick with that, not to provoke any of our Danish fans. But I want to go actually for Brian, and I wanted to highlight a quote from Niko Kovac on Daniel Svensson. I also want to highlight the young Daniel Svensson, who played his first game today, and what a great game it was. He had a prior minutes in his legs. He was still in preparation mode after a long winter break, and to deliver a performance like that must be acknowledged. Fantastic. This shows our scouting department did an excellent job and that we have discovered another real talent. So, Brian, what did you think about Svensson participation in this match? And I mean, he wasn't in a really pressure situation. He just got in from the summer transfer market. He played a little bit in the weekend before against Stuttgart since Bisebani got injured in the middle of the second half. But what do you think about his performance? Like, any things you can highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a very energetic performance. I think he did a lot of things right. He did mention, I think, in an interview that he was initially pretty nervous when the game first started, but I think he really grew into the game, and I think you could really see that talent that Niko Kovac was talking about really shine through. I mean, he tried to do a little bit of everything. He was going tracking back in defense. He was trying to create situations up front. And it was just a very composed performance for a player that is just coming into a new team. And yeah, I don't know. Like I wrote about this a little bit in my piece for not for him, but about him for GGFN. And what I was saying is he has that sort of tenacity that like you see Rierson have, and I love seeing both of our fullbacks kind of have that. He does come into an interesting situation here at Dortmund where Bensebaini is having his own renaissance of a season. So when they're both fully available and ready to go, that's going to be an interesting conundrum for Kovac and Dortmund. Personally, for me, I do like how more forward thinking Svensson is, and I do love that tenaciousness about him. I think he does add a little bit more energy to the game than Bensebaini does. And I think that's more so Dortmund's long-term left back. So I mean, giving him minutes is going to be important. But overall, when it comes to this game, I think he really didn't put much of a foot wrong. And for him to be able to compose himself and despite being nervous initially to come in and have an impact the way he did, I'm very happy with it. And we'll talk more about that later because yeah, we have a section for that kind of stuff as well where I may or may not be highlighting this guy. So.
Yeah, exactly. So now, I mean, there's also a few quotes here from Sebastian Kell, but I mean, when I was reading that pre-match, I mean, there was like a quote on the pre-match that he said it's an important game in Lisbon, and it's important in a few weeks that everyone gets back in the real good shape. But yeah, it's true that one or two players don't always perform at their best, and we're not in this position in the table for nothing. So it really highlighted the position that Dortmund is at the moment, and I was glad that Kel was honest about it and just to realize that we're not in a position to really not play to the level and to the standard that Dortmund needs to play. And I think the result really speaks for that. But I mean, it's more about how we capitalize in the second half, and it was not a constant. Like the first half was a little bit shaky, and then we drift apart a little bit, but then we managed to like gather everything together and pull an excellent result against Sporting. I mean, it's like like 1-0 or 2-0, like I wouldn't be surprised, but a 3-0 win, wow, that really uh I don't know. What do you think, Kevin? Do you think the match up against Sporting next week is it over like 3-0, or do you still have hopes for like Sporting maybe coming
It's
back to this match?
it's done.
It's
Three
the
goals, yeah. Yeah. For them to go 3 goals in Dortmund would be way too hard. They just had a really frustrating match yesterday. Bizarre own goal from the goalie. I don't know if you guys that came across your socials, but really bizarre goal there. The captain Morty Heumann, he got sent off, so it's probably going to be some really angry players coming in midweek. But you know, 3 goals in the stadium like Dortmund's is going to be way too hard to come back from.
Yeah, no, I think maybe it's not over, but yeah, I don't know. I'm a Dortmund fan, so I'm never too optimistic. Like you always need to keep things calm and just wait for like the referee just to blow the whistle. But let's go to another segment here. I want to know from you, Evan, and you, Brian, our star and dud of this particular match against Sporting. So we are basically, Evan, that's a segment we have here in the show where we choose the star of the match and the dud of the
Oh,
match, if there is one that kind of pops it in your mind at the moment. And I'm going to start with you, Evan. Do you think there's any stars for this particular match?
well, for
Can
that
be
game,
from any
probably great.
sides.
From that game, probably Guriassi. But if I'm gonna pick with someone from Sporting, probably Kanda. Kanda's always been great, or Arujo. But yeah, for the game in general, Guriassi.
Hmm. Araujo is your star then.
Pardon?
Araujo, is he your star?
No. I'll go Guriassi. Guriassi.
Girassi. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not because I asked about the star, but no worries. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
good. So you have the two answer that the same. We have Girassi as the star, and then we have
Uh,
Araujo as the dud. But can you talk a little bit more about Girassi? Or why do you think he was the star of this match?
well, it's a great performance. Scored the goal, kind of sparked the comeback. Yeah, I don't know, not too much on him. He's a great player.
Oh, okay, great. So I think I have to go with Brian then. Brian, do you wanna give me your star and dud of the week? We can do like that. We can do 2 in a row if you want to.
Sure. I mean, my answers are going to be based on, just to preface them, on obviously 2 separate games here. So my star is going to be, Svensson kind of alluded to that, right? With that being the case, he came on, like I said, it was a really big game for him, to start for Dortmund. And he had a fantastic, performance. And I think that, him coming in the way he did, it takes a lot of character to be able to do that. It takes a lot of, mental strength and fortitude to be like, you know what, I'm nervous, whatever, but I got to do a job. This is my new team. This is a completely new experience for me. But and for him to put in that performance that he did, he looked like he'd been part of the team for years, frankly speaking. So I was very happy to see that. And yeah, so that'll be my star. When it comes to the dud, I'm gonna have to go with Julian Brandt over the course of the game against Bochum, which we'll get more into in a little bit. But I thought he put in a very lethargic performance. And yeah, it just really didn't impress me. It was kind of like in the game against Sporting, you saw him, running more, you saw him more involved in the game, and then you go into the Bochum game where he's completely almost like disassociated once again, making those loose passes and just not really having much of an impact. So yeah, I mean that I think that sums up my star and dud of the week.
No, yeah, Brian, that's for sure. I mean, those are fair shout outs. I think it's Vincent that had a great debut for as Borussia Dortmund player, and to debut like that as a starter in a Champions League match, a knockout round. Man, what a great posture. I think I'm not gonna say he put Quenda in his pocket, but I mean, Kenna had a hard time passing the Swede. I mean, I was not expecting that. Kenna is a brilliant player, and to have such a good defensive performance against a matchup like that, I think it's really a great shout out from you. And I mean, I think in terms of my star, I think I'm going to stick with Karina Deemi. I think he was really spicy up there in the right flank. He gave a lot of work to Mateus Reis on the right side, left side of the Sporting defense. Sorry, and I really think Adeyemi, he did a little bit everything. He was pulling us forward, carrying the ball forward in dangerous areas, shooting well. He was dribbling well, and he scored a goal. And he was basically the guy who started the counter attack for the third goal, who really, I mean, basically sealed the deal for us. And hopefully, he's gonna take Borussia Dortmund to the next stage and the round of 16. In terms of the dud, I mean, I think I can separate my dud in 2 parts. I think in terms of the dud for this match against Sporting, I don't think there's any particular guy that really from Dortmund that had a really like below standard uh performance. I thought Sabitzer was a little bit out of sync with the midfield, and it has been a criticism from us here in the pod from the few weeks back. But I think from the sporting end, I was really disappointed with a few players, and I think Gjorker is. I'm not gonna say he's the complete dud, but I thought he could have done a little bit better. I mean, of course, he was coming back from injury and from the bench, but I mean, he didn't really have much impact since coming in into the beginning of the second half. So I'm gonna say that I even tweeted on the BB Bus page as a joke that he was. I don't know who Gjorker it is. I only know who Emre Can is, who had a really solid match against
Praising
the
image trend is not something you'll hear us do
yeah,
often.
yeah. Thank God Eli is not
It's
here.
a
He's
crazy
gonna kill
day.
me if he hears that.
I'm surprised he's still
But
playing.
anyway, I think my dud for like the Dortmund, like in general for the week, and also counting the Bochum match. I mean, I think Brad is an excellent shout from Brian. Like, I think he was really like in the beginning of the first half against Bochum. I thought he was decent. He was really managing to just pull the ball forward in those dangerous areas. He gave a great assist that Girassi wasted in the I think was the 10th minute or something. We missed a few key shots in the beginning of that first half against Bochum that really killed us, and then after that we know what happened. Like the second half was just terrible. But we're gonna talk more about that later. But I mean, a dud from that match that really bothered me, and I think that's a guy that has not been playing well in the whole week. From Dortmund is Jamie Gittens, and it's not like he's a bad player. I really love Jamie Gittens, as I have been complimenting him in the past few weeks here in the pod. But I mean, he was not really effective enough in both of those matches. He was holding the ball for too long, not finding the right spaces to like when to shoot and where to find the right pass for a player in a better position to shoot. So in that sense, I think Jimmy Gittens is a little bit of a dud for this week. I think he could have done better, and it's no coincidence that he left against Sporting like in the beginning for Max Bayer, if I state correctly. So in that sense, I
And
think those
against
are
Bochum
my
as well.
against Bochum as well. Yeah, same sub in both games. So I think he is my dud, unfortunately. But he's an excellent player, but just not really in a good week. So, well, okay, so now that we're finished with the start and the dud of the week, of course, we're already talked a little bit about the looking ahead, the next matchup, Dortmund and Sporting. This Tuesday, we're gonna figure out, no, is it Tuesday or is it Wednesday? I'm not really
I
sure
think it
right
might be
now.
Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday, right? Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
think,
they
I'll
usually
check for
flip
you right
them.
now.
yeah, just get that info from me, Brian. As I just want to know from you guys, and start with Evan. What did Sporting themselves need to do to improve on going into the game against Dortmund?
Wednesday.
What players can you highlight that's going to be possible like game changers in the second leg for you? And do you have an expected lineup as well?
I don't know. I think they gotta give Kienda a lot more freedom on the wing there. Probably put him back into his proper position. Um, give I'd say give Trincao the ball a lot more too. And then yeah, hoping for a solid game from Hulman. Inacio played today, so he might be back to cover up the back line. But they're definitely gonna need to shore up that defense. And I mean, I think they're just hoping to not get lit up again. So if I think a 1-0 win would be ideal, or a 1-0 loss even would be ideal result based on trying to catch up to 3 goals, and then the calamity they kind of ensued on the weekend with all the way from goalkeeping to not being able to beat a team like Aruka. So, yeah.
No, no, great. And I think they have also some guys that rested in this past match against Saroka because Diamande and if I'm not wrong, Mateus Reis were sent off against Porto by the end of the match, and then they had a week off, and then they're probably gonna come back here. No, they're definitely gonna come back in the sporting with the sporting squad to Dortmund, and with a little week of rest. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think
because
it's
like I
really
think
interesting to have
I think that
expected lineup for us, Evan. Like,
expect the lineup. I mean, the Bast I think was supposed to rest this weekend, but he ended up getting played. Him, Inacio out there, Rougeau, Saint Just, Fresneda, Hulmand, if he's available. Then yeah, Trincao, Harder, and Kienda, and then maybe just start Gyökeres and Gyökeres and Harder together, because that's kind of what ended up happening this weekend. They produced the first goal for Sporting because there was an injury to Bragança, so Harder came on early, and then Gyökeres set up Harder for a goal. So I don't know, they might run with that. Probably unlikely, but it might be what happens.
No, cool.
Gyökeres and Harder up front would be a scary, scary thing to face.
Yeah, it'll be a scary duo to face. Yeah, no, for sure. I think those guys can be the difference makers. And but I mean, what about you, Brian? Do you want to see anything specifically from the team and Niko Kovac in the second leg? And do you have an expected lineup for us?
Um, I want to see subs made a lot earlier than the 80th minute. He did a better job against Bochum. Granted, I mean, they didn't have much of an effect. But I definitely want to see a quicker reaction time. I would love to see Julian Brandt benched for Gio Reyna at this point because, I've criticized Reyna in the past for perhaps not being the most defensively minded player, and that's not really his role as an attacking midfielder. Obviously, that isn't going to be his first worry. But he's definitely, and this is the one thing that I've always praised him for, and I 100% believe he's fantastic at. He is able to play that incisive pass that we saw so lacking against Bochum. We were unable to produce that. And I think putting him into this game where we're already 3-up against Sporting could kind of get the ball rolling for him to start moving forward, at least until the end of the season, until Dortmund really decide, what it is that they're doing with the number 10 position, whether Brandt is able to fight his way back. Because at the end of the day, I don't think Brandt has been showing enough to be starting at this point. As much as I love the player for what he's capable of doing, he has not been producing that on a consistent basis at this point. It's almost as if he's reverted because last season he was fantastic. He had 25 plus or just around 24, 25 goal contributions over the entire season, something like that. It was definitely 20 plus, so don't quote me on the exact number, but it was a lot. And he was far more effective, far more consistent, and his overall play seemed to be a bit more composed. And I feel like that was because initially in the first half of the season, he had Marco Reus and Gio Reyna behind him, and then he still had Marco Reus, who was still gunning for that position while he was still with the club in the second half of the season. So I feel like without that sort of pressure, because Reyna's been injured a lot, we've kind of seen him regress. And because of that, I would want to see him take some time on the bench to reflect on those performances and put in a player like Reyna, who is now fit and probably raring to go, be it, to cement his place in this Dortmund side or even, show himself off for potential clubs in the summer. You have a player that has reason to be motivated. Julian Brandt at this point in time does not seem motivated to me. So that would be the main change that I would like to see Kovac make. The other one I'd like to see him make is to take Emre Can out of center back. If Anton is fit, please play Schlotterbeck and Anton together, or Psula and Schlotterbeck, or whatever it is. Play two natural center backs together. I'm begging you, because it clearly didn't work against Bochum. And I think you really need to start cementing a specific center back partnership. I think that's been one of the big issues that we've had so much rotation in that. And I know you need to rotate because, in the past when Edin Terzic was coach, I complained about that. I complained about the lack of rotation, but now it's been too much rotation. And some of it's granted not been at the choice of be it Shaheen or Kovac, because obviously people have been injured or suspended, this, that, and the third. But now everyone is fit. Now everyone is available. Just try and cement something there, because I think that's one thing that'll really help with all this leakiness in terms of letting in goals and stuff like that, and kind of give Gregor Kobel some more actual coverage. So those are two things I really want to see. If we're really talking about, lineups, Girassi up front, like I said, hoping for Reyna in that 10 position, getting Zanadiemi on the wing. When it comes to the midfield, I think that's a massive place we still have a ton of problems. But what I expect is probably more of the same. Gross and Sabitzer. I would love Svensson to get another start because I think he deserves it. I'll go with Schlotterbeck and Anton in the middle, and Rierson at right back, and Kobel in goal, of course. But
No, yeah, I think it's. I agree with you with basically what you said, Brian, and I think the thing with the rotation in the back line, it's not just like we need rotation, but you need to rotate for the right reasons, like due to injuries or just to rest some players, not because you can figure out which partnership is the best with the players you have at your disposal, which I think that's what be going on at Borussia Dortmund right now. And I think I would have like some similar kind of expected lineup, and or at least the lineup that I wanted to put on the pitch. And I think it's going to be for me Colbo, Ryerson, and then Anton Schlotterbeck, and hopefully Vince Baini if he's fit. But Svensson has been doing a good job, as we said earlier. But I think the midfield is the most tricky part of the lineup because I don't think we have that many options, or at least options that you can really like rely on or trust. I mean, since Felix Nmecha left injured like a month ago, I think basically he has been missing a ton in that sixth position. And I'm not saying he was playing brilliantly. In the last few matches before his injury, he was degrading a little bit compared to the start of his season for Borussia Dortmund. But I really think that we need a more like presence like Felix in the midfield, but I don't really see that right now. I'm not sure if Carney Chukwuemeka that we loaned from Chelsea in the winter transfer window is gonna be available, and I think he's more of an eight rather than a six. So I'm gonna say that I'm gonna start Emre Can as our six, not because I really want to, but that's the guy we have, honestly, in the squad right now. So he kind of fits that
Yeah.
role. And Gross has like has been disappointing me like since he joined Borussia Dortmund. Like he has done some good stuff, but I mean, nowadays, especially in the recent matches, he has started more often. But I see him everywhere on the pitch, but still he hasn't impacted in any areas, not out of possession or with the ball. And that's a guy I was relying a little bit more. Like he can also be a six. I think I would be surprised if he plays a six, but because I don't think he's that physical to play that role in a Kovac system. But I think, I mean, it would be an interesting shot, but I think he's going to stick with Emre Can, the captain there. I don't think Kovac is going to let go of Emre Can right now. So, but I'm going to go with Emre Can. I'm going to go with Pascal Gross, and I'm going to go with Gio Reyna. I think Brandt, as Brian said, has been a little underwhelming in the past few matches. And I said in an article that I wrote for BB Buzz, I think it was one of the takeaways from the sporting match. I said Brandt is some player when he is confident. But at this point, I don't really think Brand is confident enough to be starting for Borussia Dortmund. And I even there was a quote from Niko Kovac this week saying he is at the same level as Jamal Musiala and Florian Wirtz. As much as I like Brandt, like I think those guys are not in the same level as Julian Brandt. But okay, I think let the manager defend his man. Like it's a fair point, but to make that comparison for me, it's just like ridiculous at this point. But and the front trio is going to be the same: Gittins, Adeyemi, and Girassi. I'm expecting an interesting match. I mean, Sporting is gonna have to go a little more forward. They have nothing to lose. So in that sense, they play like the kind of like a sniper role. Like they, it doesn't matter what happened. They can they're gonna try their luck and try to win this match, even if it's away from home. But and that's my next question. Do you guys have any score predictions for this upcoming game between Sporting and Borussia Dortmund? Let's start with you, Evan.
Ooh, I don't know. Sporting really go for it. I feel like it might be a 2-1 game for Dortmund. Sporting might be able to get one back and make it a little bit interesting, but realistically, I don't think they can do it.
Brian?
Uh, yeah. This question for me is always complicated. It should be just be an easy guess. But yeah, just the way this team is playing, just as Evan just said, it could be a 2-1 for Dortmund. I very much as easily see it being like a 2-1 for Sporting. We say this, I feel like almost every week. It really depends on what Dortmund team shows up. Um, and once again, I mean, I guess it comes down to what we said earlier for the Champions League. They've somehow managed to seem more, um, just enthusiastic about the games, or they seem to show up. Once again, my guess is not based on any sort of analysis. It's just vibes. I want them to do well, so I'm going to speak it into existence. I want to see that 2-0 this time around. They need a clean sheet. They need to get back on track, and I really thought that excuse me, the win that that they had against Sporting over this past week, that would really kind of light a fire under them and really like galvanize them to come out and do better in the league. Clearly it wasn't enough, so I think we need another one to kind of get that ball rolling. So 2-0 again for me. I really hope that they're able to do that, and it's a home game, so they've performed better at home. So there's also that trend that they have going for them. So we'll see, but yeah, 2-0.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. I think Dortmund would definitely need to bounce back from the defeat against Bochum the weekend. So they kind of need this win, and especially a convincing performance, especially because it's the beginning of Kovac's spell as Borussia Dortmund manager. But in that sense, I also don't want to disqualify Sporting because they are a great team. It's just they really had their shot in the first half against us in the first leg, but then in the second half we capitalized in two chances like in a span of what like was like 5-10 minutes, and then was pretty much like attack against defense, and we scored the third. So in that sense, I don't want to scout them. They have nothing to lose. My prediction is going to be a little bit crazy. I think it's going to be 2-2, and I think Sporting are gonna start winning 2-0, and then Dortmund's gonna find 2-1, and then Sporting is gonna go all win, and then Dortmund is gonna draw the match, and in also another match of two different halves, with Sporting being more dominant, and I think they have the potential for that. I think the Kovac system really likes to press through the middle, so they really like the opponents to play through the flanks. So if Sporting explore the flanks better than they did in the first leg, I think we could be in trouble if guys like Kenda and Francisco Tincão have a more consistent match all around. It can be dangerous, but I'm gonna go a little bit crazy here because, as Evan said before, it's a 3-0 win in the first leg. Really unlikely that Sporting can pull off a miracle. I'm gonna hit on the wood right now, so that doesn't happen. I'm a really superstitious person. So in that sense, but I think it's gonna be 2-2, but Dortmund and in the end is gonna be qualifying 5-2 on aggregate. And this is the end for our Sporting Dortmund segment. Okay, and now we're gonna move on, guys, to Bochum versus Borussia Dortmund. I'm gonna read a little bit of some of the initial stats before we dig into the match and the analysis itself. In this match was a little bit crazy in terms of XG, 2.84 for Bochum and 2.58 for Borussia Dortmund, and Dortmund haven't scored any goals in this match. So see how inconsistent we are and how we scored our chances against Sporting. But in this match, we completely underperformed our XG. 18 shots for Bochum and 17 for us. On target, 8 against 2. So you can really see how Dortmund was really unreliable in terms of chance creating and how we cannot finish this match. And in possession, we had most of the possession, 69 against 31, but didn't matter much. Bochum really were the best team on the pitch, in my opinion. And I want to go with Brian first in this match, since you are the Dortmund expert. Brian, what are your general thoughts of this match against Bochum?
Atrocious, terrible, demoralizing, depressing. Those are my initial thoughts, because you, as Borussia Dortmund, should not. I don't care how bad of a season you're having. It's a derby, and Bochum are bottom of the table. Bottom. Rock bottom. And you still manage, in your attempt, in your bid to somehow secure European football next season, you still somehow managed to lose 2-0 to them. It was embarrassing. It really felt that, they had taken no lessons from the game against Sporting, and not really taken any like positive energy from that. And it almost seemed like, kind of like what we were saying, they just weren't interested. And once again, I'm going to highlight Brent in this because I think he encapsulates it very well. In the game against Sporting, you had a player that shockingly was, running around a lot more, was more involved in play. Here, I mean, you mentioned he created that one chance for Girassi, and, Girassi putting away that chance is a separate matter, or the lack of putting that away, I should say, is a separate matter. But to once again revert to this player that's so phlegmatic, that's so, like, easily, like, able to, like, gift the opposition possession, it just didn't seem like they were just like there. Like, both goals to me were extremely avoidable. I mean, the first one kind of being them able to play through the back line, and then Svensson was simply unable to catch up to his man at the end there, and the ball goes in. And then the second goal, and I don't want to harp on this too much because I know Sula is just coming back from injury, but that was just careless. It was just another instance of careless play, and I think that's been the trend throughout the entire season. You have a team that it's not that these teams are outplaying us even. It's more so we're outplaying or underplaying ourselves and allowing them, gifting them these chances and this ability to take these leads to put us in a pit from the beginning. And then it's extremely hard to get out of that. And Bochum is just another example of that. These goals did not have to happen. And I feel like, yeah, it's just kind of us shooting ourselves in our own foot. And it's just depressing at this point. Like I don't know what else to say on that. It's just like these goals that are going in and the way we're playing, like these mistakes are so avoidable, and yet somehow every single game in the league we're able to repeat these mistakes in one shape or form. Uh, and I think it comes down a little bit to what we had discussed earlier. I think it comes down to instability in the team, a weak midfield right now because you don't really have that much of that support in the midfield in transition when attacks are occurring, and then defenses are or our defense I should say is just not simply coordinated at this point because it keeps switching. There's like no stability in this side, and I think that's a big portion of it. But yeah, like depressing. Depressing, Pedro. It was very depressing.
Yeah, I know. I'm also really depressed with that game, right? Thanks for reminding me. And I mean, I can even tell, like, I have my notes here on my computer in front of me. I usually separate my notes in like two, like first half and second half. I have all my notes from first half, which there's nothing really much to tell. And then the second half, I didn't write down anything. I just wrote one phrase, just saying, just sadness. That's my whole what I got from that second half against Bochum. But I want to first ask Evan before I go on my rant about Borussia Dortmund and how terrible we were against Bochum. I mean, just to give a little bit context to Evan, we are currently Borussia Dortmund is in 11th place in the league right now. We are just, I think it was 5, 6 points behind Stuttgart, who are fifth place, which would be an interesting spot for us at this point, just fighting for European competitions because Bayern Munich is going to win it. We all know it. They just drew against Leverkusen. Leverkusen, and I mean it's 8 points difference between the first and the second, so it's going to be really hard for anyone to catch with Bayern Munich. But uh, I mean, would you expect something like that from a club like Borussia Dortmund, which is really notable, no, like worldwide, to being like the second or one of the best teams in Germany? And what would be equivalent like in Portugal, like to like a club like Borussia Dortmund to have a season like that, like in the Portuguese league? Like, what would do you think that would be possible to like either Sporting, Benfica, or Porto to have a season that terrible? Like,
Oh no, there's far too much corruption in Portugal. Those teams to do is bad. Yeah,
The
I
honesty
mean,
is
yeah, it's
real.
definitely an off season for Dortmund. They're usually used to seeing you guys up top. 11th place is pretty shocking, and a loss to Bochum, obviously not usually in the cards, but I feel like I've seen a lot of crazy upsets in Germany over the past couple of years. We used to follow Dortmund a little closer when Guerrero was there. We used to chime in on the odd game. Um, both everyone kind of moving on to Bayern Munich. We've been following the Bundesliga a little bit less. But yeah, team like in Portugal to kind of have that situation. If it would be anyone, it would be Sporting. I mean, I think you guys are a little more alike than you'd think. Because yeah, they're in Portugal. It's generally Porto, Benfica, 1-2. Sporting every 20 years or so they muster up a really competitive squad. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where they are right now. But it's been a tight three horse race for the last 2 or 3 years since Amorim kind of jumped in. Um, but we'll see what happens next. But yeah, otherwise it's generally similar at the top, Portugal. But again, it's a lot different. I'm sure how they split up money compared to Bundesliga. I'm pretty sure they have equal viewing rights and stuff for all the teams
yeah,
there.
yeah. I think in Portugal there is, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah,
not
in
there.
Portugal there is a big disparity, right? Like from the top teams from the middle block. Of course, I have Braga, who's always there, like going for the fourth place. But I mean, I think that would be equivalent. I with the Portuguese table right in front of me, like it would be equivalent to Sporting have a terrible season as Borussia Dortmund is having, and to lose to a team like the last place Boa Vista, they have 12 points in 22 matches. I mean, just terrible, but I think it would be way unlikely because like the quality, like from the top to the bottom, the quality disparity is still big in the Portuguese league. In the Bundesliga, not as much, but still, Dortmund is a club that needs to beat sides like Bochum, especially on a derby. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm about to go on a rant here, but basically, like I think in the first half, like Bochum from the minute one, they gave a sample of like a team that was willing to fight for victory at any cost because they're desperate to get out of that relegation situation. And Dortmund was just like passengers, just looking their players to press and not doing anything to try to evade their press and or try to do anything. I mean, at some point in the first half, we kind of balanced things out. I think at some point while we were creating those chances with Girassi and that shot from Julio Brandt from outside the box, there was something there that Dortmund, I mean, was trying to get into the match. But at the same time, I don't know, their midfield, like their whole dynamic, their whole physicality, like they were in a different rotation than Dortmund was from minute one. And I think what Brian said about us underperforming, absolutely, I agree. But at the same time, I want to give the shout out to Bahun because, like, I think it's really unfair not to recognize the great match they had, despite the disparity between the two teams in terms of finances, in terms of squad quality. Like, they were really good in that match, really physical, and know how to press and put Dortmund in a uncomfortable situation. And Dortmund couldn't find a solution to try to escape that. And I mean, from the minute that we conceded the first goal, I mean, I think it was there were so many flaws there. I think Sula made a mistake not taking a key tackle like at the right side, and then we got Hoffman running, and Emre Can was nowhere to be seen. He was not where he was supposed to be as a center back. Like he's not even a center back, but he wasn't where he's supposed to be on the right side, center back. And then they scored first goal, like easy goal for them. Like that new signing there, I just forgot his name. Would just have the easy work of just tapping into goal, easy goal for them. And then Niklas Sula, I mean, oh my God, he just literally delivered a goal to Bochum. It's like it was. He's a center back. Evan playing as a right back. He's played before. He has been decent, but that's not his natural position. And he's just came back from an injury, and then he just played an easy pass for the attacker to score the 2-0. Like didn't even
Great, it's a great through ball.
give us a chance. Yeah, didn't even give us a chance to react like to the first goal and try to get back into the match.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have a chance
I think
to
it just
leave. Like
I think it just came down to underestimating a very hungry team on a week between Champions League games where you guys probably played your heart out to get those 3 goals. You're gonna have to defend the next week, and then you're like, okay, these guys are bottom of the table, probably fly by them, but then Bochum were there and they were awake and ready to pounce.
And that's a massive problem for Dortmund because I feel like that's something that they do more often than not is and it's crazy to me because in the situation that you're in, it's inexcusable to ever underestimate your opposition, right? But in a situation where it's already extremely perilous, your participation in any sort of European competition is very much under threat in the next season because of your position in the league. You have to start making up these points. This is a terrible time to start, once again, underestimating any sort of opposition. Every game, I feel like, needs to be taken seriously. And that's one thing that I think teams like Leverkusen, teams like Bayern, in the Bundesliga at least, are able to do. They take these games seriously. Teams that want to win are able to scrape through, and even in these scrappy games. And I 100% agree with you, Pedro, in terms of giving Bochum their flowers because at the end of the day, they did push through and they did put in that fight to be able to win this game, and we can't take that away from them. But what we could have taken away is the helpful hand that we've been giving them and other teams in the league. We've helped numerous teams get points that have been extremely important for them to either stay in or move up. We're basically being extremely generous with these teams, and it's a shame because once again, if you look at these chances and you look at these goals going, a lot of the time it's just like it's not like this was fantastic play. It was just them taking advantage of an opportunity that we presented them with, an opportunity we didn't have to do. So yeah. And just if we're giving Bochum their flowers, the scorer of their goals, his name is Georgios Masouras, and I believe
Masuro,
he's on loan.
yes, the new signing. Thanks.
He's on
But
loan from I believe he's on loan from Olympiacos right now. So
okay. No, no, that's so true. And I mean, I even have a quote from Niko Kovac here in front of me before the match. And I quote, Leverkusen and Leipzig have drawn there at Bochum. We are traveling there and we don't want to win a beauty prize. We want to build confidence by getting 3 points. And that's the thing that I wrote about in the takeaways from the sporting match as well. My third, I think my last takeaway was that Kovac ball, it's not like a beauty prize per se, but it's effective. And that's what we were against Sporting. But if you're not gonna play pretty football, you better get a result, which was exactly what Niko Kovac didn't do. And speaking of Kovac, I don't wanna say that he was to blame completely for the defeat. Because I gave the play Raiders, I think I gave him a 4, and I gave that because I think the main blame is the players. Let me make myself clear: the players had nothing to present themselves with this match. Especially the second half is one of the worst I've seen Borussia Dortmund to perform ever in my life. I'm a fan since 2013. So, I mean, I never seen like a more lifeless team than that Borussia Dortmund second half team against Bochum. But I think Niko Kovac has some blame, and especially in terms of the starting 11. As Brian said before, I think Emre Can as an improvised center back. I mean, he played that before, but we have options there. Sula himself, coming back from injury, could have played there. Anton was on the bench and technically should have been the starter because he was the guy we signed up for this job in the summer transfer window, but he was nowhere to be seen. Um, I mean, and even a situation about Young Koto. I mean, I'm not saying Young Koto has been brilliant for Borussia Dortmund. He's a player I really like, and I wrote about him recently as well. I think he has a lot of talent, and I think he really was caught up in a situation in which he was caught in the Sahim turmoil. Like Sahim usually wanted to play with two center backs, and probably he wanted Young Koto to be the right wing back, but then Sahim was getting all the bad results and performances, and then he needed to switch the system to a back four. And then there's also the process of the adaptation to the language, the team, the culture, and everything. So I think young Koto's travel to Dortmund has been like a nightmare since day one, and with the whole second situation and all the problems that came with it. But I mean, I can not even like understand how he could have felt when he knew that Niklas Sule, a center back coming back from injury, was going to play ahead of him as a right center back for Borussia Dortmund in this match against Bochum. I cannot quantify how frustrated I would be if I was Jan Koto. And I don't really think he deserved that. I think a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, he played not terrible against them as well against Bochum. He almost delivered a goal to them by the end of the second half." But I mean, we're already done. Like Dortmund was done by that point. But at least with Koto had some offensive threat, like a different guy who can also play through the middle, who could carry the ball forward and deliver some good crosses and some good passes to maybe we come back into that match. But no, so I think Niko Kovac has some blame on this match. I mean, with starting with the back four, I think he could have done better. The midfield dynamics, Sabitzer has not been working that at all since he got in to the sixth role. He has done decent, but we don't need decent. We need a guy that can deliver. And I think Emre Can, for now, with what we have, I think he can deliver more as a six than Sabitzer because it's not a position that Sabitzer usually plays. So I think overall, don't want to say the players are not to blame. They're very to blame. But Niko Kovac also is a guy that needs to be criticized because I mean, when you say you don't want to win a beauty prize and you want to, but you're gonna get the 3 points of the way, you better win the 3 points, and he didn't do it.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, this kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier too, with the choices and lineup and then substitutions. I mean, I agree with you in terms of Koto, being able to play more of a role in this game. I think the logic behind putting Sule on was once again, I guess, maybe an underestimation of Bochum. Simply, thinking that Sule, even though he's just coming back from injury, he has played right back before and he's been effective at it. So that should be enough to be able to see the team out against Bochum. But yeah, playing a more natural right back, more natural player in that position would have been a better option, and particularly because of the creative aspect that Kuto brings to the pitch. And once again, I think the amount of time that Julian Brandt was allowed to run around like a headless chicken is yeah, it's laughable. So I think that granted he did have a good game against Sporting, so that's why he started. When you see he's not performing to that standard, I think you take him off and put on Reina, who could be raring to go. But Evan, I was actually going to ask you about a specific Sporting player because I think he would be a player that Dortmund could really benefit from in the future. And I think we've been linked with him in the past, but I wanted to hear more about Hjulmand because we're really pining for a proper six. Um, to come to Dortmund, and I think that Hjulmand would make a really, really good option for Dortmund. Granted, if we could afford him at this point, I don't know how much they're going to be charging
It's
for this guy now
that
that he's
Portuguese league tax.
seriously. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about him? Because I think he is the type of player that Dortmund really could benefit from as a replacement to someone like Emre Can. And we do have Felix Demetra, and he is someone who has been playing better this season. But his form has also been a bit up and down. So we're also, at least I'll speak for myself. I'm not fully sure whether or not he's the final answer for Dortmund at six because that's not really the position we bought him in for. And like I said, he's not exactly the most consistent player during his time throughout Dortmund. And granted, that's down to injuries and a bunch of other stuff. But let's hear more about Hjulmand because I'm curious what information you're able to provide about him. Because like I said, from my perspective, I think he'd be a really good fit for this Dortmund side.
No, yeah, Hillman, he's been one of the best players since the Emery era has come in. I mean, quickly made himself or became captain, which I think says a lot about any player that within 2 or 3 seasons, I think two, he's or even after one, he was made captain. Big guy, strong guy, great distributor of the ball and motivator on the team, and I think yeah, he's definitely been probably in the top three midfielders in all of Portugal last season. I think he would do really well at Dortmund. It's one of those things where, as players leave Portugal, their price tags have been growing and growing. There's been a couple hundred millions through the years. Not that I think Hillman deserves that, but I think he'd definitely flourish in the Bundesliga, maybe a bit faster paced game. Um, yeah, if you guys were able to get your hands on him, I think he'd definitely be a massive, massive improvement.
Yeah, no, totally agree. That's a guy I really admire, and not only his abilities on the pitch, but his leadership abilities. I mean, I've seen like a video recently on the Sporting YouTube channel, like of him talking perfect Portuguese. Is not even that for that long, and his Portuguese is absolutely perfect. I mean, so that tells me that's a guy that can adapt to any culture rapidly. So that tells a lot about him, and I think he'll be a good fit as well. But
Any
of course, I'm
any
not the sporting expert.
Anytime we see a player come to Portugal and learn the language, we're like, okay, this guy's all in. He loves it here. We love it.
He's good.
Awesome,
Yeah, we
awesome.
love him. Well, guys, do you have any final comments before we can wrap up this episode, Evan?
um, on the sporting side of stuff, I don't know. I feel like if you guys press Rui Silva enough with some classic German pressing, he'll probably slip up. That would be my last comment.
Yeah, no, that's all good. Brian, you have anything left to say before we can start plugging socials?
No, I think yeah. I mean, with the upcoming Sporting game, I think winning that game or getting a good result in that game is just a boost for confidence at this point. And I think they need it. I think they need any boost of confidence that they can get, especially after watching the performance against Bochum. It's just like any boost that we can get, any little silver lining we can glean from any of these results is a win in my opinion. So here's to 3 points, moving on to the next round. But hopefully this really has them reflecting on their league form, and hopefully that can bounce them into a better position moving forward in terms of their performances and up the league table.
No, I'm with you, man, and hopefully we can get that win. But I mean, since I think we're mostly done, I think it's time to wrap up the episode. Guys, thank you very much for come along with me in this episode. Evan, do you want to plug your socials right quick before we wrap up? And also, I wanted to give you one last question, and I think it's going to be an interesting one. You are a Porto fan from
Sir.
what you have told us. If you could choose one player from this sporting team to come to Porto, who would it be?
Ooh, and the easy answer is always Gyökeres, but what Kienda has been doing in the last couple weeks and month or so, I think Kienda would be a huge improvement to any team. Other than that, Diamande, because Porto probably needs some defensive backup. But yeah, Diamande would be a massive improvement. So I think to shore up the back line, yeah, I'd go for Diamande.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice shout. Do you want to plug your socials real quick?
Yeah, for sure. So Insta at the Portugal Corner, on X it's Portugal_Corner. It's me and my brother, and then two of my cousins. We do podcasts basically about Portuguese league, and then we take a look at Portuguese players around the world as well. So we'll talk a lot about the Premier League, and then Leão and Conceição over at Milan now, especially with Felix there too, and always looking at Ronaldo. So that's our pod, Portugal Corner. So check it out. If you have any listeners in the GTA, York United, check out new professional team there in the Canadian Premier League. Soccer is expanding in Canada, so if you're a fan of soccer, you want to come see some good live soccer, check out York United.
Nice, thank you. And what about you, Brian? Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, for sure. And before I plug myself once again, Evan, thank you for joining us on the pod. Real pleasure to have you here and give your insight on the Portuguese side of things in terms of sporting and all that. So super knowledgeable. So thank you for that. And definitely go follow and listen to their pod if you have an interest in the Portuguese league and any Portuguese players. But as for my end, you can catch me on X or Twitter, I should say. I don't like to call it X for obvious reasons. I don't know why that slipped out. That's embarrassing. But Twitter or Blue Sky, and writing for GGFN when time allows. So catch me there too.
Thank you, Brian. So, again, thank you, Evan, for your participation. As for me, I don't need to plug anything from myself. I just gonna ask you guys if you guys can follow Dortmund Dispatch in all the social medias. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all the episodes on demand there, and also have our audio version on your favorite podcast listening platform. So that's it for us. Also, please be with Buzz, of course. I work there. Me and Joey here in the pod, we also do articles regularly there. So check that out. And I think that's it for now. Thank you very much for tagging along with us in this episode, and have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Jadon Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce out. Another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond
Jetzt
compare.
kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inso an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!